Shemai, today we're out having a walk and we're just going down the road here and we're sort of passing this hedge here and we're going to have a look at this plant that's absolutely smothering this hedge, and it's old man's beard. It's also known as traveller's joy. It's Clematis vitalba in Latin, and in Welsh it's barf hen ur, and it can be found, as you can see here, on hedges, on the woodland edges and in scrubland, and it's a really vigorous grower and easy to identify. Now this will grow up to 30 metres, and that's not just 30 metres across, it can also grow 30 metres up, and it will trail up large trees and sort of cover the hedges, as we can see here, and it's a rambling woody sort of climber. Now in some places, because it's such a vigorous grower and it will overpower the plants that it grows on, like this hedge, it can be considered an invasive species. So we're going to take a closer look now. Now the flowers, as you can see here, they flower between sort of July and September, and they're fragrant. They smell quite nice, and they're about 20 millimetres across, with this kind of greenish white or creamy white head to them there, and they're in these loose clusters, as you can see, with I'm just trying to, can't quite see it, there might be one on the underside of there with sort of 4 sepals on the underside there. The leaves, as you can see, now that the stem is this long woody, and it's green at the moment, but as it gets older turns into like a woody thick stem. I'll move to this bit actually, because you can see it's a bit more obvious. And from that then comes the leaves, which they come off this ridged stem. There's the stem, and you can just see it coming off there. And the leaves are opposite, so you can see there's one on this side and one on that side, one on this side, one on that side. And they're on these long stalks, as you can see there, and there's about there we are, 3 to 5 little leaflets that are, it's difficult to say, I mean they've got more of a wavy margin. Sometimes you can sort of see a toothed kind of margin, loosely toothed margin, but they're sort of more, there's a minor sort of hint of a tooth there, but they're sort of this wavy smoothish margin to them, I guess. Now these flowers here, once they've sort of gone over and they start to turn into the seeds, they turn into the reason that it's called traveller's joy, because what happens, it creates this here, all the same plant, this big trailing Clematis vitalba here, the old man's beard, and the seeds are this sort of feathery, you can see here, turn into this sort of feathery thing, and they've got these long silky feathered threads radiating from the actual seed head itself, and actually they're called achenes. Now these feathery sort of heads like this are the reason that it gets the name old man's beard, because when this is in sort of full swing it looks like an old man's beard, and it also gives rise to the name traveller's joy, because these beautiful sort of feathery seeds, especially in the sort of late autumn, winter, they would kind of adorn the hedges, so the travellers would it would brighten a traveller's sort of journey as on the run up to Christmas. You can imagine once the leaves are off the trees and things were looking a bit more bleak, and this would, I suppose, give them a little bit of joy. So traveller's joy, or old man's beard, yeah, it can be considered sort of overpowering and sort of a bit sort of suffocating on plants, but it is really good. It's good for pollinators. You can imagine with this number of flowers on a plant, it attracts lots of bees and hoverflies, and then of course the seeds, as the seeds sort of mature, then they're visited by lots of birds like goldfinches that feed on the seeds. Now in the past it was also used medicinally. It was used to treat many ailments, including things like stress and skin irritations, and the stem, you can imagine with a stem that sort of is long and sort of quite rigid like this, it was used in basket making. Now there is a little bit of lore around it. You can imagine a plant that's sort of been around like this and is well known and well easily identified, I suppose. And it's thought that that it did the devil's work, and the reason for that is because it kills the plants that are underneath it. I mean, I said before, it suffocates things because it is so vigorous and it grows so thick. The hedge underneath kind of gets overpowered and suffocated and killed, and that's why it was thought to do the devil's work. Now, an interesting note with this as well is that it is poisonous. Okay, I've said it was used medicinally, but actually it's ignored by animals. You could hear the sheep over the other side of the hedge, and I guess if we walked on the field side, you'd see that they'd be leaving this alone and they wouldn't be eating it. So there we go. Old Man's Beard or Traveller's Joy. Great time of year now to go out and find it, because, I mean, primarily because at the moment you get the best of both worlds. You get the flowers and you get the seeds starting to form. It is really common, really obvious, really easy to find. So there we go. Go out and see if you can find it, and good luck.